Your officer was just here 2 weeks ago.
Okay, do you need me
and
to explain
he
it to you or
explained
no?
it to me that you guys weren't enforcing that order.
Oh, we're about to.
Okay.
So you understand it though?
Okay, so why are you here?
Because your daughter is going to play at other people's home and you're allowing it to happen.
Hey friends, Sean from SGT Report here. Thank you so very much for tuning in. Before we begin this interview with our friend Frank from Quite Frankly, just a quick word from our sponsor. 14.4 million Americans fell victim to identity theft in 2018 with over $1.7 billion in damages. Now with the recent COVID-19 pandemic, fraudsters are on the prowl, and it's smart to protect yourself from an identity attack. IdentiSafe offers identity protection for as little as $9.99 per month. They provide access to credit monitoring, dark web scans, 24/7 identity agent support, real-time notifications, social security monitoring, change of address alerts, personal ID monitoring, white glove restoration, credit monitoring, credit score tracker, credit report, and up to $1 million in insurance, including a 30-day money-back guarantee. So don't delay. Sign up today. It's free for 30 days. And again, they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. So visit protectwithsgt.com for this special offer from IdentiSafe. Again, that's protectwithsgt.com. Don't fall victim to identity theft. I'll leave the link below this interview. And welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in, friends. It's terrific to have you here, and it's wonderful to have back on the line my friend Frank. You know his channel, Quite Frankly. He also has a podcast, I believe he does, with Tracy Beans called Frank and Beans. How are you, Frank?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm just so happy to be back on, and I'm happy that we're both actually still doing what we do, because man, oh man, it feels like the walls are really starting to get a little cozy in here.
Well, let me ask you this. First of all, let's share the good news. I don't know how many people know this, but you and your gal, Lauren, are expecting. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. We just found out earlier this week that we're going to have a baby girl, and I went from now I have a little bit more of terror mixed into my excitement, because I didn't know if I'd be able to handle a girl riding that bull, the hormones and everything. So this is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm already trying to find my center, my zen for this. This is going to be fun.
Well, I think you're going to love it, man. I've got one daughter, and we have 3 sons, and daughters are special, man. They're all special. You bring a human being into this world, you're blessed. Now, unfortunately, in our case, we did it back when we were young, dumb, and trusting of the government. So our 2 oldest boys got pretty much all of the vaccines. And it's a real challenge. And you live in a state where I think if you want to send your kids to school, they're going to make you vaccinate, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like I have to really do a lot more research over here in New York. It doesn't even matter if you're anywhere near the city, but it's the state. And I know that this, and it's something I was going to cover on my show soon, because it's been covered by the New York Times and elsewhere in the past, that here in New York, there has been a coalition of people that you would never think would ever be on the same page as this stuff. People from all different types of religious backgrounds, or no religious background, people who vote all these different types of ways. It's going across race and ethnicity and everything else, where there is a real concern that New Yorkers, and I hope it happens in bigger numbers, that it's just a matter of bodily autonomy. And me, I'm totally prepared to homeschool my children if it means that we get to have control over what gets stuck inside of them. And because I already think that anybody I homeschool is going to be smarter than anybody that went through public school system anyhow. But that's just what I'm looking at here in New York. What are our options going to be? And how much? And this is something, honestly, everybody's starting to get gut checked with right now, because there's millions of children being homeschooled right now out of necessity. So it's, I don't know, a little bit of a testing phase, I guess. But that is what is on the menu for me over here in the great state of New York.
Well, it just seems like the noose is tightening around the neck of liberty, doesn't it? I mean, these authoritarians, we see this stuff going on in New York, mandatory vaccines. We see it going on in California, mandatory vaccines. We see the beaches open in California. People flood to the beaches because they're sick and tired of this sheltering in place nonsense. And then they closed the beaches in California because people weren't social distancing. These people are such authoritarians and they get off on it. I wanted to show you this. Let's just do a little Twitter sharing together today.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen this, but it really is fun to watch because when I'm talking about cops and others that get off on being authoritarians, this really says it all.
Hi, Amy.
Hi.
I'm Deputy Everhart with the Sheriff's Department. So, are you aware that we're in a stay-at-home order right now?
Yeah, obviously.
By the government?
Yes,
of
I am
Wisconsin?
aware.
Okay, you're aware of that?
I am aware.
So I don't need to explain that to you?
No, you don't need to explain
Okay,
that
because
to
I
me.
can if you need me to.
Go. You can because your officer was just here 2 weeks ago,
Okay, do you need me to
and
explain
he
it to you or
explained
no?
it to me that you guys weren't enforcing that order.
Oh, we're about to.
Okay.
So you understand it, though?
Okay, so why are you here?
Because your daughter is going to play at other people's home, and you're allowing it to happen.
They were over here as well. So
Okay.
are you
And
here?
they've been talked to
Okay.
about it. So
No,
now
I
I'm talking to
understand.
you,
Okay.
and so either you can acknowledge it or you can argue
I'm
with it.
I'm acknowledging it.
Okay, stop having your kid go by other people's home.
Okay, I acknowledged it. Anything else?
Nope, that was it. Apparently, there was some other
I
issue
acknowledged it.
before
I acknowledged
Okay,
it.
good. Thank
Anything
you.
else?
Yeah, I need your last name. Amy, what's your last name?
I'm not. Do you? Is there a reason you're asking for
I'm
it?
adding you to the screen so we can document that we had contact with you.
Is there a reason for it?
Yep, because you're
That's what I,
violating
that's
the
what I'm
state.
doing.
How's this make you feel as you're watching this?
I want to hit something.
I
wanna
know.
hit-
I would really be swearing at these people at this point.
I would be taken away. I definitely would be taken away by these two pricks.
Okay.
So then there's
I would like to
documentation
see
of
the
who we
law
spoke
that
to.
requires me to give you that information.
First of all, they're coming to their house. You're telling me that they don't know what her last name is?
Right.
It's just a
Yes, I haven't-
all these exercises are so they're so
I don't believe that I'm
invasive,
required to give that to you.
even in
Are
how
we done here?
how
No, we're
basic
not.
of an
Okay.
exercise it is.
Your
We
last
know
name.
I'm
who
not
you
giving
are.
it to
We've
you.
come to your home address.
I haven't
Now
done
give us
anything
your
wrong.
name. Answer our questions. Answer our questions. Obey. Obey.
Okay.
It's
And
constant.
that'll be documented
I
too,
can't
that you're
stand it.
uncooperative.
Okay.
She says, I've documented that you're uncooperative. I mean, dude, this is authoritarian Nazi level stuff. And you know, I just had on Sheriff Mack not too long ago, and Sheriff Mack is a constitutional sheriff, and his whole goal is to educate sheriffs across the country that they are the last stop. They are the gatekeepers for liberty. Okay? Sheriffs are not answerable to governors that are handing down these tyrannical ordinances because they're not laws. These aren't laws. These are executive orders, and people have to comply. People have to be willing to cooperate in order for this stuff to play out.
You know, Sean, I have something over here. I was going to talk about tonight, but maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just talk about it with you. This is I think it was from yesterday morning sometime. Ilan Omar, she went out and she tweeted this. Far too many of the people who want to prematurely reopen the economy aren't workers, but the powerful and wealthy, those who benefit most from exploiting workers' labor. The wealthy have a history of putting luxury over workers' livelihoods, and this crisis is no different. Number one, some of the most of the whitelisted companies across the country are the biggest companies in the world. Those are the ones who have been whitelisted and been made more essential than anybody else. She's a liar and a fraud just for saying that too. The other thing is that this ties in with the police here because it's all part of the apparatus that has been put in place to really just throw a wet blanket over us, our spirit, and the way that we live every day. To say that we're being pushed prematurely to reopen the country makes it also almost kind of seem like this is all very normal, and that we can judge this to be premature based on past precedent. There is no precedent. It's completely unprecedented. And to think that we even have some kind of a playbook in place that we can know when it's a mature time or it's the right time to completely reopen a country that has been forcibly shut down is beyond me. And another thing here too is the lack of any kind of grounding in reality, in logic, This goes completely over the left's head when they start talking about other type of economic controls like minimum wage increases. They never actually catch the irony that the only people who are really for it are the biggest companies in the world who can actually take those kind of regulations on, while their smaller mid-sized competition is just destroyed. And then you have once again the tweeter over here, Ilhan Omar, who is making six figures because you and I, at one point, were allowed to go out completely uninhibited to go on and live life and create income and pursue whatever kind of goals we had so that they can take money from us to pay her. The fact that she's talking about how those people are being forced back to work prematurely. I mean, if we don't work, you don't have a paycheck. That's the greatest thing about all of this stuff. They are the most non-essential people in the world, Congress. I can't stand any of them.
Well, Ilhan Omar is guilty of so many crimes, too. I mean, she's the one who lied about who she's married to. I think she's committed marriage fraud, tax fraud, student loan fraud, and election fraud. Isn't that correct? And where's the arm of the law? Where is justice in this country when she can get away with that and General Flynn is facing prison time? Explain that to me.
I don't know. I mean, first of all, the marriage fraud that was tied into immigration fraud.
That's right, yeah.
So it's like a double whammy.
She married her brother.
Indeed, she did. And she had a lot of people step in the way and block the doorway on that one. Just like we're seeing a really astounding blocking of the doorway of looking into whatever is going on with Joe Biden and
That's
his
right. I was just going to say that. I know. And they're all defending him. And the Democrats are calling his accuser a liar.
Yeah.
His accusers liars.
I mean, what do we do? What do we do when this is this is the lack of standard we have anywhere, Sean? What do we do? I mean, my frustration is only growing. I don't know.
I want to retweet this to folks, and here, let me write this.
Sheriff Mack.
I'll tell you, man, it's just appalling. It's so appalling to me to watch cops, and in this case, even more appalling, sheriffs. See, sheriffs, again, they're not answerable to anybody. They're not answerable to the governor. They don't have to enforce unconstitutional laws. They should be going out of their way to enforce the Constitution. They shouldn't be showing up at this woman's house to try to scare her. She hasn't committed a crime. They can't arrest her, but they can show up and act like Nazis and authoritarian enforcers of tyrannical executive orders. And it just amazes me that so many of them get off on doing it, man. And then again, we see over there in California, they're closing all the beaches because people showed up to go for a swim. Everybody's just going to shelter in place for, what, 18 months until Bill Gates rolls out his mandatory vaccine?
I don't know. Well, Sean, you and I both know that most people don't even know where money comes from. They don't even know where money comes from, what it is. They don't know the difference between money and currency. When you're able to take away these basic understandings of everything from people, then it's cool. I mean, the studies have been done to show that many people are making more money than they were when they were employed before this entire sham was foisted upon us. And when you're looking at that, and you're looking at the amount of money that's being spent, and or just printed and spent, dispersed, it's unbelievable. But the big thing here is that we've been stress tested. We've been stress tested as a people. We already had work ethic problems. We have a cultural rot that has sunk in so long ago, and it's been getting worse and worse. And now, right now, we've been stress tested. And I think coming out on the other end of this, first of all, they're telling us apocalyptic or Armageddon type numbers of deaths, and those deaths did not show up. So what they're doing now is, and we've seen people from Deborah Birx to that other woman from Illinois. We saw it here in New York, where overnight the entire country's death toll jumped 17% because they recalculated and in an upward swing of 3,700 people over here in New York. 3,700 deaths were added to the death toll in one night because of presumed COVID-19. So they have been able to keep these numbers right in a workable place. Right in a workable place. If you think about all the admissions of just how these numbers are being pampered and fluffed, then you have to look at this 60,000 toll today and think that it's at least half that. And what does that really do for us, Sean? Well, once we hit the 60,000 mark, I mean, last week when it was 57,000, they already started dropping the Vietnam numbers. Oh, now as many people have died in Vietnam have now died from COVID-19. Well, now we're in 60 to 80,000 range. That's the normal flu. Now they can say that, thank God we shut everything down. It would have been hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people dead. Well, now that the summer is coming on in, you can bet your bottom dollar that this is going to make its second wave appearance in October. Bet your bottom dollar, because this has been nothing but one big push for mail-in votes. It's been a big push for just completely soaking and soaking us with this monopoly money. It's unreal. You want to talk about where people's priorities are. There's no reason why they tried to get major portions of the Green New Deal funded if this was a real biological scourge that was running around the country. So there's just so much.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the dollar. You know, that's really been the mountain that I'm willing to die on here is talking about the Fed and the printing. All of this money, I think $6 trillion in stimulus, most of it going straight to criminal banks. And, I think a lot of people are cheerleading the death of this system because they don't really understand how bad it can get. You know, I've been stacking precious metals for a decade. I've been preparing for the end of the dollar, and I know most people have not been. Even some of these people that are cheerleading the death of this system. So it's funny, I stand back and I go, well, why am I so angry about this? Because I don't want to see people get hurt. So I'm angry about the money printing and the Fed and the unconstitutionality of all of this stuff, because when this system ends and the dollar dies, a lot of people are going to starve. People are going to get badly hurt if this thing doesn't somehow magically end well. You know, I've talked to expert after expert saying, I don't think this is going to end well. I don't see it. Max Kaiser. I've talked to so many smart people who don't see this ending well for we the people, Frank, and it really makes me mad.
Yeah. Oh, I have a big problem with it. You know, and I even had to, tell my mother about it too, and because nobody really like I said, nobody understands even where money comes from, and what gives it value in a logical world. There's something that gives your currency value, that you can actually create a printed piece of paper that's an IOU for something with actual value to it. And when you're talking about faith, which is really what we're backed by. We're backed by faith. Nothing about this has been good to watch. Even before this virus, looking at $2 trillion spending bills, $1.5 trillion spending bills. This administration has been printing money like drunken sailors, just like anybody else. And I'm looking at it here, and I'm saying, well, the only thing I can say is this: before Trump showed up, we knew that this was a dead currency as it is. The debt that we have is completely unserviceable. At that point, it was like 23 trillion. But if you look into our unfunded liabilities, we're going into hundreds of trillions of dollars. That's why every time somebody says, "Oh, a tax cut is going to explode the deficit," well, why is that? Because nowhere in the modern American psyche is it acceptable to ever think about cutting spending. Ever. That's why there's only one way of looking at this. If you cut taxes and you alleviate burdens on people who actually go out there and stimulate economies and stimulate the world with innovation and ingenuity and all that stuff, like the way that we do when we're let free of all this crap, then it's going to explode the deficit, explode the debt, because we need to then charge all of this money that we need for, these 2.5 everybody says that we have a military industrial complex. Sure. I'm sure there's plenty of defense spending that we can cut if we stop being the police of the world and defending most of Europe and everything like that. But it is minuscule to what we're spending on Social Security and healthcare and education and everything we were never supposed to be spending money on. So you think about this stuff. I'm saying, well, this was doomed before even Trump shows up. So if he went and printed 10 billion, million, $trillion, I would be almost okay with it, as long as I knew, hey, what's the plan coming out of this? What were we always going to go into? How much of a haircut do the rest of us have to take if you have $10,000 that you manage to save in the bank or something like that? What does that $10,000 look like when we transition into the next thing, which has to come? There's no saving the current situation we're in right now. So I've always been curious about that. Now, I would love to see a little bit more of a soft landing than a complete implosion, but I don't know how one can predominate over the other right now, because there's just so much chaos, and the printing presses they don't stop. So I don't know. I share your concerns, and I do not share your same stockpile of precious metals. So I'm kind of in the holding the bag a quarter of this argument.
Well, can you see the screen here?
Yeah.
All right. So this is an article you should read. 6 central banks and the Ponzi scheme that will bankrupt the world. I can never say this guy's name. Egon van Grieres, I think, from goldswitzerland.com. And he basically in this article says the exact same thing you just said, which is, well, wait a minute. If it's okay to print 6 trillion, why not print 100 trillion? Why not send stimulus checks out making every American a millionaire? And he goes on to explain why that doesn't work and how it ends. And it always ends badly. It doesn't matter if it's the Weimar Republic or Zimbabwe or what's been going on in Venezuela. You cannot print your way to prosperity. And I'll tell you this, my friend, even my wife, who's listened to me for years and years and didn't understand why I was interested in buying physical silver, didn't really get it, right? People don't really understand it. They just, it's like you put it in a safe or you lock it away somewhere and it just sits there and nobody really understands. Why would you want to own precious metals? But she said to me the other day, and I mentioned this in a recent interview, her friend who owns a hair salon just got $50,000 in a forgivable small business loan because of the coronavirus. $50,000. And my wife said, how does that work? And I said, well, it doesn't work well. It doesn't work well for the dollar and our purchasing power. You can't just print money and give it to people. And it's nothing against my wife's friend. She's great. And she has paid the price of this totalitarian tiptoe because of the coronavirus, because they forced her to close her business. This is not America, my friend. This is not the America that we love and cherish. This is quickly turning into a fascist state. And let's just go back and let's talk about solutions. Here's one. I guess Orange County is pushing back against that criminal Governor Newsom and saying, no, we're not going to close the beaches. We're not going to do it. We're not going to enforce your lockdown. And that's what needs to happen, man. People need to go to the beaches, and the sheriffs and the cops need to stand down and let people get back to their lives. Because I've said this many times. Would you rather be bankrupted and safe from the coronavirus, or would you rather take your chances and live your life? It's a pretty simple question, Frank. They can't protect us from everything by having us stay in our homes for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, no, okay. So this brings me a few things up for me. First of all, over here in New York, a couple of miles to the southeast of me, there is a Mayor Bill de Blasio, and he came out and it's really interesting because he called out the Jews over here in New York in particular, which is always a very tricky thing to do. You can't really be very careful when you bring up the Jewish community anywhere. And he went out and he said, the time's up and we're coming for you. And I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing, you idiot? But at the same time where I was just like, I can't believe he called them out. At the same time, I tipped my cap to the couple thousand Jewish mourners that showed up for a funeral for a well-respected rabbi or whatever. And I wish more people would actually take that as a, just like out there in California in the beaches, as a pushback. No, we're carrying on. Ilhan Omar, who talks about They're trying to put us, force us back to work prematurely. Force us, like everybody was on was linked together on a chain gang, smashing rocks. Nobody was forced anything. The average person wakes up in the morning and they have things that they have to do. They have things they want to achieve. They have a life they want to build for themselves, for their family. It's not forcing. It's just individuals living their lives. And they're putting all of this stick it to the man nonsense, anti-capitalist spin on everything, as if this virus has given us a chance to really experiment with things outside of the capitalist system, which is ridiculous because capitalism is only giving them the money or the temporary surplus at one point or the credit at one point to do all this stuff that they're doing. And as far as New York goes, you're saying this is what people have to do, the pushback, and we have to come up with solutions on our own. We were designed as a constitutional republic to be this decentralized and this dispersed with our authority, with the authority that has been vested in municipalities and states and counties and whatever the hell it is. And of course, the general government being very, very minuscule and inconsequential in our lives as it pertains to anything outside of, national defense and international trade regulation and making sure there's free trade and free movement on the interior of our country. So, and we were set up that way so that places like California, Illinois, New York, Rhode Island, we would be able to find solutions to whatever the problem is, economic, biological, or otherwise, within our own means. New York shutting everybody down and holding out their palm to the federal government for money to keep them afloat. If we were a sane country, that would never happen. In a sane country, New York would say, okay, well, we don't have the money to shut down. Nobody has the money to shut down. We're not going to collapse the state. So what we have to do is, if there is a threat out there, if there's a bad flu going around, if there's an outbreak of meningitis or something like that, you have to just let high-risk groups know what's going on, and you have to find a way to carry on. And there's going to be people that get sick. There's going to get the people that die, that recover. And eventually it burns through, and life can go back to normal. What they're doing now is totally different, and that's why I say outside of this whatever the origin story of the virus was, we are dealing with how it's being used in a propagandistic and a political way. This is ushering in something else. It's not about what is best for the country. It's about how they can use this crisis to fundamentally change the country in ways they couldn't do during peacetime. Because of course, it's a big war mentality now. And just to go back to the real quick to wrap up the thought about the constitutional republic that we used to have and the decentralization that was baked into our charter, that goes to show that if New York goes and destroys itself, it only destroys itself. It doesn't destroy Rhode Island. So everybody wants to do is make sure that we shut down the whole country, just like they want healthcare and education to be one size fits all approach for everybody, so that if something does go wrong, we all sink together instead of little bubbles popping. They want one giant bubble to destroy everything. And that's where we are. You can't tell me it's stupidity. There's definitely malice built into this.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. 100%. And where do you stand right now on the whole idea that the white hats are in control?
Well, I mean, here's a AP headline for you from an hour ago. U.S. intel: coronavirus not man-made, still studying the lab theory. That's just a little bit more proof right there that Donald doesn't have control over the intelligence community still. And that's just one play. I mean, I'm sure that there's great people in there. There's great people. I mean, it's a federal government that employs 2 million Americans. You can't tell me that there's not thousands of good people that want to do something and maybe tied up in process and everything else. And of course, we're seeing how all these departments and agencies are run. So I'm sure that there's people fighting the fight of their lives out there. But as I always go back to, the plan that everybody wants to trust, for me, has always been public awakening. It is the only thing that we can do. It's the only thing that is going to reinvigorate the ground level in localities, local culture, local customs. It's the only thing that's going to get people interested in making sure that their state houses, their state senates are filled with people who are they're full of gusto and life and vigor, and they want to go out and fight for something that restores independence to individuals and to communities again. The only way we're ever going to do anything in this country is by committing to the kind of conversations, Sean, that you put on out there, that I hope I'm able to contribute on a nightly basis. All of our friends and colleagues are doing. That's the only way that you're going to get anything really, really done here. The solution is not going to be federal. It was never going to be. I would love to. Now, with that being said, I'm going to be voting Trump 2020, absolutely, and I'm going to take whatever wins we get when we get them. But we are the solution at the ground level. And until we know exactly who our state representatives are, and we hold our governors to account, and we are making sure that our communities are pretty much our mini nations, that we can most effectively and directly impact the direction of life and the quality of life there, then nothing's going to change. Right. We're not going to send any new fresh faces to Congress that can actually go out there and put up a fight. Nothing's going to change until we really commit to wholeheartedly the real plan, which is public awakening. And then, of course, celebrate the W's when we get them. But, I was talking to somebody before. I was actually talking to my mother-in-law. She texted me because she's been paying attention a lot more lately. And she asked me a rhetorical question, Sean. She said, can't we just get back to simpler times? And I said to her, the problem here is that it was already really bad when people thought the times were simpler. And only back then, people like you, Sean, and me, we were considered just grade A kooks. So it's almost like for many people, they're waking up from a nice dream and realizing they're in the middle of a nightmare instead of the other way around. And once again, the only way to change any of that is for people like my mother-in-law, who never really paid attention to this stuff, to finally be asking, how the hell did we get here? That's the only thing that gives me hope. Because
I agree, man. I totally agree. And what you just said, we were thought of as kooks, reminds me of that Barney Miller clip. Did you ever see that clip where the guy's ranting about Rockefeller and the Council on Foreign Relations?
Yep.
100% truth. 100% truth. None of it was funny, but they put a laugh track under it, and he was treated like a kook. Let me show you this. The key is to have governors who respect and love the Constitution and are actually there to enforce liberty. Compare and contrast. South Dakota's Republican Governor Kristi Noem, who never closed the state's economy, with Michigan's tyrant Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Let me show you this. That's the governor.
It's a parade for you. Wave to him. Okay, let's...
And she teared up because she didn't...
I'm tearing up over here.
Well, I mean, look, man. Meanwhile, in Michigan, that tyrant is being sued by her constituents. So compare and contrast. It's real simple, folks. Liberty versus tyranny. Take your pick.
Yeah. No, that's it. Absolutely. No, and I heard her in Michigan there too. I was especially appalled when I heard the whole, what'd she say? Oh, now almost like it was the detention in high school. Now you just got yourself 2 more weeks of shutdown. Or she at least floated it on out there. I said, what, how does this happen? And what happens is, you look at, once again, where are all of our, where's the attention, the collective attention being placed? And you look at the voting the voting turnout in state and local elections, as opposed to the every 4 years dog and pony show that is the general election for president, because people think that they're voting in a king. That's just really what it's gone down to. It's so that's what I say. That's how you get people like the Michigan governor in there, or Andrew Cuomo is just a recognizable last name over here in New York. And I don't know that. First of all, this is why I love. I'm a full supporter of secession movements. That's huge. I love that.
Yeah, I agree. Let me do one more screen share, just a couple more things here, because the other thing we're up against is not just tyrannical governors or politicians. It's non-governmental organizations. It's the people like George Soros and Bill Gates. I retweeted this yesterday asking first, how much square footage has this woman devoted to the storage of hideous scarves? And second, who does she really report to? Listen to this.
Infrastructure to contact trace the way that we need to?
I think that's why the criteria that you can see the gates that are that the federal government has recommended are.
Do we have enough infrastructure to contact trace the way that we need to?
I think that's why the criteria that you can see the gates that are that the federal government has recommended are.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It sounds like she was about to say the Gates Foundation.
Well, it's not only that. I'm sure you've seen this, but did you see Bill Clinton talking for a minute and a half on contact tracers the other day?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I saw that. that.
So, Gates, or what do you want? You want the Clintons or the Gates following you around? And that in particular is so ridiculous to say that. Well, we need to be able to trace people who have had contact with this one or that one. We need to interview them, see where they've been, what their daily activity habits have been, so we can get a handle on this. And in California alone, we've seen 7,000 to 9,000 people already volunteer to be part of this contact tracer army that they're trying to build out there. This is in California that they're talking about. This is a state that decriminalized having sex with somebody and withholding an HIV diagnosis to get rid of the stigma of that virus. And can you imagine if they said we're going to have a contact tracer follow anybody who has an HIV diagnosis in California? There would be a lynch mob forming. And now they're saying they're going to unleash armies of civilian tattletales.
That's right. It's a tattletale squad. Yeah, I saw that, the Bill Clinton clip on Amazing Polly's channel. She did a contact tracer video explaining that whole program. Yeah, it's just Marxist madness, man. And let me just do one last screen share to flush out what I was telling you previously. I just want people to understand how this does not end well. So Egon writes, why doesn't the Fed just print the annual U.S. GDP of $21.5 trillion? He says, if the Fed or the U.S. government claims that they are issuing real money that has real value, why don't they just print 21 trillion annually? This equates to the U.S. annual GDP. So instead of having to work and produce goods, every U.S. adult and child is just given 65 grand each. He does the division on that 21 trillion divided by 331 million people. Nobody would need to work, and everyone can just spend the money as they like and live in total bliss like Shangri-La. Obviously, someone would need to produce food and provide essential services, but that could all be brought in from low-cost countries. If the U.S. government and the Fed really believe that they're solving all problems by printing money, why don't they just go full out and print the annual GDP? But why then stop at 21 trillion? Why not print 43 trillion to double the standard of living? Or why not go to 100 trillion so everyone can really get wealthy? If the current system of printing trillions or even tens of trillions works, I'd like the Fed and the government to explain why they can't print hundreds of trillions. Are they saying that printing 10 trillion represents real money, but not 100 trillion, which would be fake? Can any serious observer believe that these 6 central banks will save the world by printing worthless money? How far do they think they can take their Ponzi scheme before the whole world discovers their bluff? And that is the cautionary tale I've been trying to tell people, man. This is what I'm worried about, and I don't want to see this system crash and burn. I know a lot of people do, unless an honest, sovereign system backed by tangibles like gold and silver is introduced and rolled out to replace this broken, dying dollar paradigm, petrodollar system. We're in a lot of trouble. And that's what I've been trying to help people understand. And then I talk to people like Praying Medic, and he says, that's your issue. It's not my issue. I said, no, man, it's our collective issue. We all have one thing in common. the U.S. dollar.
It is, yeah. That is the one thing that we have in common, and it is, and of course, the same mental failings that are producing this kind of pie in the sky mentality of printing endless amounts of money is the same kind of mental failings that think that when people go out there and they protest the fight for 15, they don't understand. Okay, well, why not make it the fight for 75? Let's make it the fight for $100 an hour minimum wage. Just do it. If we're being arbitrary about this, let's give ourselves the greatest pay raise out there. Then, of course, you're going to have to tell somebody, try to explain to them why a gallon of milk is now $58, and why your rent has gone up 3 times. But nobody understands rent and utilities. Sean, I was trying to smack myself awake from the nightmare of watching that trending topic of everybody going after their landlords. Now, I know that there are dick landlords out there. There's dick landscapers out there. So, I mean, as far as personalities go, sure, I'm sure that there's bad apples everywhere. But as far as the idea of being a landlord or being someone who rents out properties for those who are looking for spaces, whether it be apartments or houses or whatever, to think that landlords you can put some kind of an artificial measure on top of this daisy chain of costs and utilities and all like that, to tell somebody you should suspend rent. Okay, well, how do I pay the power bill? How do I pay the water bill? How do I pay this or that? They don't understand that artificial means of trying to either mitigate disasters that you created in the past, actually, because everything is usually a mitigation of a disaster that was caused by another action in the past. But they don't understand that every little thing that they try to impose artificially to make this stuff better is only causing another link in the chain to break somewhere else. It's like watching the little Dutch boy trying to put their fingers in the dam. I don't know. I don't know, because once again, what's the outcry for? What are people calling out for? It's not freedom. It's not in the numbers that we need right now. I know that it's happening, and it's happening a lot more these days. But we need to reach a critical mass quickly, because you can see how quickly the other side is accelerating their own plans.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. All right, well, last word here, and it's a message for the white hats. Dear white hats, we know who the enemies of humanity and liberty are. We've discussed their names many times on this show. Frank has, so many of us have in the Truth Media. Names like George Soros, James Clapper, John Brennan, Hillary and Bill Clinton, Bill Gates is a new one to throw in the mix, and so many others. And Sarah Carter just recently detailed this. U.S. District Court Judge Emmett Sullivan unsealed 4 pages of FBI emails and handwritten notes regarding former Trump National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, revealing that he was set up for a perjury trap. Frank, your final word and your message to the white hats. We're going to see some arrests soon, because we damn well better.
I've said this for a long time, and I guess I'll just keep it nice and simple. I pray, because I know that people are watching what people like you and I talk about, what people outside of the broadcast medium talk about in their blogs or on their Twitter threads, wherever people go to have these conversations. I know it's all being taken into consideration, and it has to be. And I pray that anybody on the inside that watches conversations like this, find your intestinal fortitude, find your spirit, and do what's right. Rip the Band-Aid off. Some of us can take it, many others can't, but it has to be done. There's nothing about this system or this mutation of our system of government that we have right now that is worth keeping. Nothing. And not only does this swamp need to be drained, but afterwards, every manhole cover needs to be fused shut. There is no room for switching out one group of people for a new team of people. In 15 years, it'll be right back the way it is. This is like the ring of power in Lord of the Rings. You have got to pare down the size of government And when you kick these people out, and you have to make an example of them, and it has to be swift and decisive. Once you make an example of them, you have got to fuse the doors shut. You have got to make sure nobody's let back in. And we, the people at home, need to start taking a little bit more responsibility in our personal lives, in our state and local governments. That is the only thing. That is the only way that we come out of this and actually can restore the republic. Other than that, there is no republic right now.
All right, man. Well, I love your voice and your intellect. You seem to have a knack for this stuff. Maybe you should stick with it, huh?
Maybe a little bit longer.
All right.
I'm gonna listen. I got a daughter coming now, so I gotta.
You gotta step it up.
As long as my voice is still kicking.
All right. Tell people about your daily show. That's the other thing. I can't believe you do this. What, an hour or two every single day?
2 hours a night. It is. I wake up in the morning. I read. I research. I write. I take some breaks to eat and work out and all that stuff. And here what I do: Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. live on quitefrankly.tv. That's where the D Live is embedded, but also live on YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, and of course afterwards by 11 p.m. Eastern time every night. That nightly episode is uploaded to every podcast platforms you could possibly use, from Google to iTunes, Stitch, Spotify, all that stuff. So whether you are a live kind of a person or an on-demand person, you can find anything you need to know at quitefrankly.tv.
All right. And how many subscribers do you have right now on YouTube?
On YouTube, I think I have like 52,000, which is, in my world, about 250,000, because I just don't grow at all. So.
Really? Are they curbing your views and your subscribers? Well, let's get you some more subscribers. I'd like you to get that 100,000 subs level. You can get one of those YouTube plaques.
That would be amazing. My brother's 1 million subscriber plaque is in the other room. So
what? Who's that?
My brother's he's the singer of my band, but his personal project is 10-second songs. He's got like almost 4 million subscribers.
I had no idea.
It's amazing.
What's his name? What's his channel?
Anthony. His name is Anthony Vincent, but you can go, it's 10-second songs. He takes songs and he covers them in different styles and genres and past artists and all that stuff. So that's that.
I had no idea. All right, guys. Well, let's give Frank a boost with his YouTube subscriber count. It's Quite Frankly on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate you, man. All right. Well, thanks for coming on. I appreciate your time today. I'll let you get back to your work and preparing for your show tonight. So take care, and congrats to you and Lauren.
Thank you. Be well, my friend. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Much love. All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. We very much appreciate you. Special shout out to our patrons who are keeping us in this fight for real news and truth. And for real news, guys, you can visit us directly at sgtreport.com. The antidote to corporate propaganda 24/7. God bless. Bye-bye.
The blowback of these events is they want to control our body. They want to control our immune system. They want to put a chip in us and COVID, certificate of vaccine identification. Like, I know all that, but see, the thing is, they need us to want it. And because it's the top-down control. The higher up you go on this pyramid, the more you see little, tiny, weak, scared dudes. Like Bill Gates, you could give him a wedgie and throw him in a swimming pool with zero effort,